For my Profiling a Leader project, I'm going to be talking about Howard Schultz. So Howard Schultz is the CEO or former CEO of Starbucks and also the former owner of the Seattle Supersonics. A little background on Starbucks. It's a worldwide chain of coffee houses that began in Seattle in 1971. They sell several types of coffees, cappuccinos, and pastries as well. So Schultz actually was not the founder of Starbucks. He was hired as a director of retail and marketing in 1982, a decade after the company was founded. And he actually quit the company to start his own coffee shop after his ideas were rejected by Starbucks. But only 2 years later, Starbucks sold the company back to him, and he rebranded his shops into Starbucks stores. Schultz also stepped down as the CEO multiple times to help focus on the company's international expansion. So I chose Howard Schultz because I knew about his shortcomings being an MBA owner, but I also knew of his obvious successes in the coffee industry, as there's a Starbucks on every corner nowadays. Um, So I figured it'd be interesting to look into his leadership skills and what he did to become so successful. And also, I remember him having a brief run or hinting at running for president, so that also brought him to mind as well. So, some of the leadership examples of Howard Schultz. First of all, his mission statement for his company is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. And I think this mission statement places a good emphasis on the customer and shows exactly what he wants his company to do. And that's to make people's lives better, even with something small like a cup of coffee. So I think with his mission statement, he showed exactly the direction that he wants his company to take. Also, when Schultz took over as the CEO again in 2008, it was during the recession. The first thing he did was apologize to employees and their families for not being transparent enough when they're implementing plans and laying off workers. Um, Schultz said that when you have to cut workers, you have to show 100% empathy and you've got to communicate clearly what's happening quickly, and you got to tell them why decisions are being made, because if you leave people in the dark, that's just not good management. And after Starbucks was beginning to struggle against the competition like Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's with breakfast sandwiches and all that, um, Schultz took a defensive strategy by cutting these warm breakfast sandwiches off the menu and focusing on what Starbucks does best, which is coffee. Going back to the recession with Schultz when he had to lay off workers, Schultz also exemplified theory Y management by taking more of a human relations approach and treating his employees as humans and people with emotions and not just, labor pawns that help make him money. And I think that's important when you're a big manager because you have to show respect for the people or they're not going to respect you. So some leadership situations with Schultz. In 2008, during the recession, Schultz came back as the CEO of Starbucks, and he actually fired many, top executives for tipping information and ethics violations. And I think he took the justice approach against fraud and got rid of the employees who didn't live up to the standards of the company that he had set. Also, Schultz closed some stores temporarily to retrain employees on how to make the various drinks on the menu. And I think that's important because he's showing an emphasis on doing things right in every single location that he had. So some of my leadership qualities. I like to describe my leadership style as a begrudging leader. I'm never going to be the first one to step up and take charge on a group project or anything like that, but if no one else is willing to do it or things aren't looking great, I I can step in and take that role. I don't want to, but I will. One example of this is when I took over as the leader of my Boy Scout patrol several years ago. No one had thrown their name in the ring to be the patrol leader, so I stepped in and filled the bridge role until someone was ready for the long-term position 6 months later. So I think that's just a good example of like if I have to, I can do it. And during my time as patrol leader, I think the contingency viewpoint was very important towards being successful. And it's really the only way you can manage people that are the same age or even older than you. Because I know, at least in my time, like some people were not willing to like respect that I was their leader, and while others were very dependent on me for a variety of reasons, whether it was disabilities or they just liked me, I guess. um, so you can't manage those people both in the same way. You kind of have to take it on a case by case basis. And I think that was one of the few successes that I was able to have when I was leading the patrol. I didn't have many, but I believe that was one of them where I was able to handle different people differently and still like stay unified under the one goal of, you know, being a unified group. And here are my sources for my presentation.